2025, the year that disappointed us all. So Bitcoin's only down 2.8% year to date, so it feels a lot worse than it actually is when you look back at the whole year. Alts are very scattered across the board. Like, we're seeing some down in the top 10 as much as 50%. Would you say this cycle is over, or it's still got legs?
I know a lot of people super bearish, like cycle's over. I would just say the exuberance and risk-taking that you usually see towards an end of the cycle, we haven't seen it. The coming months in the new year, if altcoins really start flying, I'll be concerned. Like, if they start outpacing Bitcoin in a big way, that's like a red flag for me. Like, all right, everyone's just chasing losses, doubling down on risk. That's never usually a good thing. That's usually the bubble reinflating. But if we see Bitcoin go on a solo-bound rally next year, I think that gives more legs to the overall just market structure of everything. And I don't think it's over. Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of the Tapping Into Crypto podcast. Ted, mate, it's good to see you again.
We're back, Pav.
We're back.
We had a big couple of weeks.
We did.
We've put out a lot of content across, Australian CryptoCon, but mate, it's good to be back.
It's good to be back in the office, back in the orange chairs. But yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Like, for those people that haven't checked out the socials recently, we've got a 3-part series where we broke down some awesome conversations from some thought leaders in the crypto space, some traders, some influencers, some big names there. So if you haven't checked it, make sure you do. There's some really good just thoughts on there about the market, really, because, as we spoke about at the ACC, it's a bit of a mixed vibe. There's a lot of people that are sort of down and out on crypto right now, but I mean, the general consensus for the people that see the long-term opportunity or even past the short-term,
I think it just shows you that, like, there's a lack of apathy in the market, which is really good. People are engaged. People understand, it's a long-term game. They're not looking to get rich overnight. At least most people aren't. And people are still, as engaged as ever, despite, the market being very topsy-turvy in the last couple of months. So make sure to go check that out. You'll find it on Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. So some really engaging conversations.
No, it's really good. But in this week's episode, we want to dive into that current state of the crypto market. Like, obviously, it feels like things haven't changed for the last couple of weeks. I don't know about you, Ted, but the people that I'm speaking to, they're really confused right now, short-term and long-term investors. They're really just wondering, even is it all over, right? And it's kind of weird when, I feel like we've talked about this before. It made a bit more sense when we were talking about this in the bear market, talking about just people around us feeling just very cynical when we were in the bear market, when things felt like they were a lot worse, obviously. But, we've seen, corporate adoption, we're seeing institutional adoption, we've seen Bitcoin hit new all-time highs, and now all of a sudden, just a few months later, everything's in the toilet, right? So we're going to dive into today, what are maybe some of the more key analysts and traders out there thinking about the market. We've scoured X and we've got some key insights for everyone to share. But we also want to give our take too, because obviously, sometimes you hear things on Twitter. It's meant to be engaging. It's meant to be polarizing. You see the very bullish and the very bearish. So I guess it's up to all of us to make sense of it. But we're pretty keen just to break it all down and maybe point forward to a little bit of what's maybe to come in the short term that could help us understand where things go next.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think overall 2025 hasn't been the euphoric year that we once thought it was going to be. But it probably just goes to show that in crypto and in a lot of these investing markets, like, things don't go the way the majority goes. Otherwise, we'd all be killing it, right? And 2025 was meant to be the cycle top. We're meant to all make stacks of cash, but it hasn't really turned out that way. Like, it started off well, and then Q4's been sort of terrible for us.
I think we go back to October when we had that flash crash. I think we even said on the potty, hey, look, it feels like things are different. I wouldn't be surprised. I think we even said, like, be surprised if Q4's a nothing burger, which...
That was definitely the start of it, hey, the 10th of the 10th.
Seems to be what's happening right now, but...
Cool. Well, let's break it down. So 2025, the year that disappointed us all.
Great title.
What's happened? So Bitcoin's only down 2.8% year to date, but obviously it had that big run up and has come back down. So it feels a lot worse than it actually is when you look back at the whole year. Alts are very scattered across the board. Like, we're seeing some down in the top 10 as much as 50%. Others like ETH, that 6 to 10% mark down for the year. I do have a question for you. There's one alt that has significantly outperformed the rest of them in sort of the top 10, 20. Can you guess what it is?
Okay, give me, is it 10 or top 10 or top 20?
Top 10.
Top 10? Are you sure it's top Tron?
No, BNB.
BNB.
Yeah.
It's one off.
I was shocked to see it. I was like, this is a little bit sus. The fact that it's run by a huge global exchange. But look, it's obviously performed super well. So BNB holders are happy right now.
Yeah. Because it's the all-time highs. Yeah. Anyway, it's good to hear.
Yeah, but I guess what else are we seeing? Like, I think there's been a clear lack of rotation compared to previous cycles where Bitcoin runs, we see people, get a bit more risky, deploy that capital, some of that liquidity back into Ethereum, and then from there rotate it down to riskier alts. We just didn't see that this time because I think everything's stuck at the top with the ETFs. Retail seems a bit like
it's not even
apathetic,
It just seems to be the same old cash just recycling, but at the same time, there's not a huge wave of new people coming in yet. I think that's the problem.
Yeah.
But we can also point to just understanding how the market feels right now. I mean, if you look at fear and greed, so this is looking at there's a lot of fear and greed indexes out there, but we're just referring to the one on CoinMarketCap right now. It's currently reading 24, and it got as low as I think 14 or 11 in this recent drop. That's worse than what we saw at the trade wars earlier this year, worse than the FTX collapse in 2022.
Which is wild.
Exactly, right?
I mean, we saw Bitcoin drop to 15K.
Yeah.
Now it's at 90K US.
Yes. I mean, it's a good sign of the times too. Like, we've never really had a more positive backdrop of like crypto being adopted, yet everyone feels way more cynical about the market than they did after basically an exchange just stole a whole bunch of money from people. It's crazy.
Yeah, but I think the big reason for it is like we just cannot seem to escape this political and economic uncertainty at the moment as crypto is removing itself and depegging itself from like traditional markets and stuff. It's still so relative to how people deploy their capital in risk on and risk off markets, and right now we're in a risk off market despite all the positive adoption stories that you mentioned, and it just can't seem to sort of get that runway that it needs in order to have this bull market that we're seeking.
No, that's the problem. Like, it's definitely not, we're in our own little echo chamber. It's, the rest of the market, unless you've invested in gold this year or, the Mag 7, like, no one's really doing too crash hot, which is, just unfortunately the reality. Let's dive into some of the key opinions that some analysts out there are having, some crypto traders. We have, to be honest, cherry-picked a few of these. So we wanted to give like an ultra bullish, ultra bearish, pessimistic and optimistic take on what the market's doing and feeling right now. So first up, we've got CJ900X, who's a trader that regularly posts on Twitter. I've been following him for quite a long time, and to be honest, calls it really well.
Okay.
Very objective, technical guy if people are into that kind of thing. So I'd recommend go checking it out. But in his most recent post, he basically is looking, into the weeks ahead for Bitcoin. He kind of expects the market could position itself up as high as $95,000, but he still sees that we're going to see new lows before we go any higher. So, there is this general overall consensus that everyone's just going to be selling as soon as we start to rally. That is kind of like this idea of we're going to continue to see this chop, which is, again, like you said, we're so drawn into the whole political landscape, the whole sort of macro landscape. If they're not going to give us any certainty in the near term, I definitely kind of agree with him. Like, I do think we could see the market as much as it wants to rally, just not really have enough reason to rally for longer, which, the whole market would be quite annoyed at. Another one we've got is CZ from Binance. This is more of a look back post, I guess. He only did post it recently in October, but he talked about Bitcoin flipping gold.
Yeah.
Which I know he has historically put his sort of hat in the ring to say some pretty outlandish things. But his quote was essentially, I don't know when, but it may take some time, but it will happen. Save this tweet. So I think he did a similar thing with like the Bitcoin all-time low last cycle. So he's just kind of having another go again, I guess.
I mean, it's a pretty low risk thing to say that it's going to eventually overtake. I mean, that could be 100 years. Like it could, because it will just be like, we'll give it time.
Well,
if you put a timeline on it, then you actually.
But to flip gold, so it's got more market cap than gold.
I know.
You think it will?
Well, like, why not? Why not make that claim and then just say in 20 years' time, when let's say it hasn't flipped it yet, you'd be like, well, give it time.
Well, this is the reason why not, because I know it's been a pretty heated item for debate at the moment. The whole idea that Bitcoin's been falling off a cliff, but gold's held steady this whole period. So if everyone's been talking about Bitcoin being this new digital gold. Now, what's your take on that? Like, if we expected to flip it, wouldn't it be holding up a lot better?
Yeah, I do. I do still think like they're not completely correlated. Let's say look back at 2021. Bitcoin would outperform gold significantly, right? And probably last year as well. Whereas this year, gold has had the time in the sunshine. So it's like, yeah, gold's had a good year. I think it's up like 60 odd percent, and Bitcoin's down, 3%?
Yeah.
But that's not to say that, Bitcoin will outperform in 2026. Like, I don't know that for sure, but is it a digital gold? I think like everything in the last couple of years has sort of pointed in that direction, right? Like previously there was arguments around like, no, it's a medium of exchange. It's a currency. It's a digital currency as Satoshi mapped out. But, these days, I think most investors, particularly from an institutional standpoint, see it as that digital gold and hedge against inflation and sort of that buy and hold investment as opposed to something that we transact with on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And like stablecoins have sort of filled that gap.
It has.
So yeah, I'm not mad at that comparison.
Okay.
Yeah. What about you?
I have been thinking about it quite a bit because I'm expecting it to come up in conversation at some point. But I think if you look at this, what we know, Bitcoin is very receptive to changes in global liquidity. So if we see money in the system increase, Bitcoin also rises. Gold is, I think, in this case different because it has, and always will be, a long-term, more surer store of value, pretty similar like property, right?
Yeah.
So I think Bitcoin, there's a case for it there fundamentally, but the market's not really buying it for that reason right now. But give it time, the market structure will change to a point where everyone's just holding it passively. Then I think.
So would you say they're buying it for more of a like a tech stock? Is that sort of the play?
Well, I think it's just a case of if we can see currency is debasing, we know that there's monetary, inflation coming because it is very sensitive to inflation. So the rate at which money is coming in and out of the system, it's a play in that regard. It's going to outperform the majority of the market, and it has historically when those conditions are ripe. Like you mentioned back in 21, when we saw like that huge stimulus come in, Bitcoin, like you said, outperformed gold, right? So again, I think they're just horses for courses. While you could see fundamentally like it has the properties of what it should be, like a digital gold, it's until the market sort of agrees to that consensus, which again, we're still seeing adoption come through, right?
Yeah.
So I think it stands to reason that what we're seeing is it's doing what it should, I guess, as much as people be like, but you said it's digital gold, why isn't it?
Yeah.
Why isn't it holding up? It's just like, these things take decades, I reckon, to really materialize.
I was at the pub the other day.
I
got asked the question. Actually, I think I asked the question, but
to yourself in the mirror?
Yeah. Over the next 50 years, if you could invest all your money into one asset, and I'll give you the assets. It's either Bitcoin, gold, or the S&P 500 as say like a stock indices.
Yeah.
What would you go for?
Oh, Bitcoin.
Really?
Yeah.
That you can't sell?
Can't sell, yeah. I would.
Okay.
If I had to make as much as I could, yeah. But if I was going to play it safe, I'd go gold.
Yeah, well, the risk is like, if Bitcoin's struggling down, 20 years' time, can't sell.
Yeah.
Gold has that longevity.
It does.
It's got the historical performance to back it up.
It does, but I still think there'll be more adoption of Bitcoin than gold could, so there's more upside potential.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. No.
Well, you were just saying you're wanting Bitcoin to flip gold, so.
Well, yeah, but I like to just, make
Play
things spicy. Most people say gold in the conversation.
Yeah, so I'd expect that.
Or some people said Bitcoin. Really, anyone said the S&P 500?
Yeah, not surprised.
Okay.
Seems like a bit of a circus over there right now.
What's next? Oh, this one's actually an interesting one.
Yeah.
So
now let's go bearish, right?
So I've got this tweet from Jacob King, and it basically lists a bunch of institutions and investors and people with, prominent like sort of voice online.
People that everyone tends to, right?
Yeah, and it's listed a bunch of their predictions for Bitcoin in 2025. So I think this was their peak price for 2025, and damn, you've got some bold picks like JP Morgan 170K. This is all US. Just for reference, Vanek 180K, Standard Chartered 250, BlackRock 700. I don't think I saw that prediction.
No, I didn't either.
Michael Saylor 1 million. What else? ARK Invest 650, Cathie Wood 2 million. Like, they kind of get more ridiculous as the list goes on. None of them were strictly correct, but hey, like we had a similar sort of episode where I think we were around the 160 mark. We were probably more bullish than unless something crazy happens in the next couple of weeks, which I don't think is going to happen.
Be nice if it did, but
But it just goes to show you, like, people were uber bullish. Like, everyone just thought all the ducks were lining up and things were going to be a great year, but we just haven't seen that play out. So I guess it even fooled the smart institutions with all the the resources to do the proper research, right?
Yeah, and I think you got to take what some people say with a grain of salt. Like, I think something like like a company like JP Morgan, VanEck, like they're probably going to say a more reasonable number than, let's say, a personality who essentially want to be in the media. They want to see people talking about Bitcoin. So they'll say those outlandish 1 mil, 2 mil. Yeah. But then they also have like a time horizon. Like, as much as this guy says there were targets in 2025, I feel like people like Cathie they say like 2 mil by 2030, I'm pretty sure, don't they?
Yeah.
In terms of looking at the list, some of these like calls, like long term, I think may be valid. But yeah, I do remember reading like the VanEck 181 in their report, but
and Standard Chartered were throwing out some big juicy predictions as well, which can always come back to haunt you. So they upped it in the middle of the year, I'm pretty sure, or like
did they?
throughout the year to 250 because initially it was like maybe 200, 180. I think they're probably thinking wishing they didn't do that.
Yeah. What's your takeaway from this?
Don't always look at the headlines and take it at face value. I think, as you said, a lot of these people are trying to just grab limelight and press, and oftentimes they're wrong. So I know predictions are really fun to cover because it's like this person with a background in crypto said this, but like how many are actually right 100% of the time?
Yeah.
Unless you got a crystal ball. Because there are just so many factors that impact markets. Like even the main ones that we spoke about, like macroeconomic conditions and interest rates and sort of adoption and regulation. Like there are a couple of factors. Yeah, they're significant, but there's maybe 100 plus other things that play into it.
And if one thing falls off, the wheels come off, right?
Exactly.
So, and that's kind of what we've seen this whole year, I feel, is the common theme. But let's go to something a little bit more positive. So we're going to stick to the whole institutional front to some degree. Hunter Horsley, CEO of Bitwise Invest. He has got here a tweet or X post, I should say. National wealth firms with up to $350 billion in AUM and about 10,000 advisors were just approved for the Bitwise Bitcoin ETF today. The doors to the mainstream are opening. So he's basically pointing at the fact that, while we have seen the institutional side of this market structure really come to bear fruit for everyone this whole year, he kind of sees that continuing as a key theme, even calling out that they've basically just, I guess, onboarded $350 billion worth of assets under management that they're going to see deploy into crypto. So, while it's not going to be the whole lot, it's going to be some of it. So he's just talking about this overall, renewed optimism that you're going to see eventually demand come back in some way, shape or form. So again, forward looking, it's not going to make a material difference in the next 24 days before the year ends, but something to always keep in the back of your mind, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They would have a vested interest, but still, like these guys have their finger on the pulse when it comes to the market because they're so heavily dependent on it. I've often shared that I like to look at this CIO of Bitwise.
Yeah.
And he puts out like these weekly memos. And they're really interesting. And his recent one was like, this is the one thing I'm sure of. And I'm like, oh, here we go. Prediction time. Yeah. And he didn't say Bitcoin. He didn't say like, Solana flipping Ethereum. He didn't say Ethereum being the...
Were you talking about the ashes?
He was talking about the ashes. I mean, that's guaranteed at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, essentially he was just saying like an index. I'm all in on an index of crypto, like the top 20 cryptos, because he doesn't know if Bitcoin will remain the biggest. He doesn't know if, what the biggest categories are going to be moving forward. He doesn't know, if Ethereum's going to maintain market share, but he does know, or he's very bullish on the fact that crypto has a place sort of in the digital economy and how we, sort of will operate our daily lives. And so he's super bullish on that. So he's more looking at it from like a basket of assets,
rather
like
than
an ETF, which is not really available at the moment. But maybe we see more of that coming out, and people, instead of speculating on individual assets and betting on those, it's just like, well, I believe in crypto long term. I believe in the adoption increasing, but I'm not game enough and in it enough to pick individual.
Well, that'll be optimistic to see, because I feel like when we saw the Bitcoin ETFs go live in like, what was it, like January 24, we always said from the get-go, like the next thing will be like your ETH, Solanas, and then what comes after that will be like your baskets of goods. So something that buys like a combination of Bitcoin, ETH, and Sol, or the top 10 or the top 5.
Yeah. And
that'll be good, right? Because as much as we saw like a bid come through on Bitcoin, maybe anything in those baskets, you start to see similar activity, like see some demand as well. That'd be pretty good to see.
Yeah.
Maybe a nice little tailwind for the markets next year if that does come out and the markets look okay.
But what's your take, Pav, on it all? We've seen some expert takes and some interesting takes on Twitter, but people want to know.
Let's get the hack's opinion. Look, I think the markets are going to keep remaining choppy until there's certainty. crypto markets absolutely hate when things become uncertain. That's risk markets in general, but just because crypto is just that emerging space, it just feels it like just doubled. Like as much as you get the double the upside, you get double to the downside as well. So I think from my perspective, it's waiting for less of these games from some of the real key decision makers out there in the world. It's like actual decision that this is a direction that we're going with, like things like monetary policy, rates coming down. Even if they don't say rates are going to keep coming down, but they're like showing that they're looking to spend money in ensuring that growth doesn't slow down. I think that's going to be a big piece of the puzzle. But I wouldn't be surprised if the rest of this year is just a nothing burger. Start of next year, maybe we even see some selling and just things rebound a little.
No Santa Claus rally?
I don't know. It's hard to see. If things don't dump from here, I think altcoins could maybe like show a bit of a bid and you just get a Santa Claus rally. But I'd just be highly skeptical on how long it could last. I think that's
it doesn't feel like it. Not that anyone should base their investing opinions on how I feel.
No.
But yeah, it just seems like we're sort of going to just trickle into the new year and then maybe get some more action next year.
Big, I guess, thing everyone should look at, the latest update on interest rates in the US, as well as like the forward guidance. So you're going to hear like, well, they're not going to just talk about the result only. They're going to talk about what they're thinking about the months ahead.
Yeah.
And that'll be a big thing that maybe the market does get that Santa Claus rally just because there's a bit of stability there.
If you had to pick one, would you say this cycle is over or it's still got legs?
I'm happy to say both, but I still think I need to see more cards out of the deck. I know a lot of people super like bearish, like cycle's over. I would just say the exuberance and risk taking that you usually see towards an end of the cycle, we haven't seen it. The coming months in the new year, I would be keen to see if altcoins really start flying. I'll be concerned. Like if they start outpacing Bitcoin in a big way, that's like a orange to red flag for me. Like, all right, everyone's just chasing losses, doubling down on risk. That's never usually a good thing. That's usually the bubble reinflating. But if we see Bitcoin go on a solo bound rally next year, I think that gives more legs to the overall just market structure of everything. And I don't think it's over. Yeah, but I could easily see this, what we're going through. Again, like I talk about, we need certainty from key people in the market that basically, set the tone for everyone getting involved in investing. If they do nothing until like mid next year or early next year, that's my case of like, well, Bitcoin could still go to 70-ish K and things aren't over, but it just doesn't look great. And it's easy to think that it's over. What about you?
I just heard Pav said the show goes on.
The show goes on?
I'm running with that.
Yeah, okay.
But let's dive into some top movers and some quick news stories. Top movers interesting. I think Sui's at the top, which is obviously on the back of a very poor month. Yeah. So it's kind of rallied a little bit to come up. But overall, I think it's been rinsed the last couple of months.
But we've talked about this in the past. I feel like this is almost the right time to be checking in on top movers because you're seeing, well, if things are bad, what are people actually buying? Like that's a big deal. So I think to see names in there like Sui, like Pepe, like Chainlink, like Athena and Aave, those are pretty household names at this point, like top 30 assets.
Yeah.
That's where the money's going right now. If you're looking at altcoins and trying to maybe DCA into a position long term, if you think it is a long term decision to make, but
I think ultimately though, like personally, I'm not looking at any sort of altcoins and looking to make it big on there because as we've said a million times, the uncertainty is just it's too strong.
Yeah.
Sure, you could make a bet. And it could go one of two ways, and you could do really well there. But ultimately, I'm just looking to get defensive with my portfolio. What does that mean? It means majority in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Still holding on to some of the assets that I was still in the green in, or taking some profits, but just holding on to my strong performers. So Solana and Hyperliquid, like Sui, I couldn't really come up with a sort of thesis for why I should hold on to it at this point.
Right, okay.
Like that's not to say that'll change down the line.
Yeah.
It seems to perform quite well in bullish markets.
Yeah. Cool.
But yeah, that's just sort of how I'm playing it at the moment. But you're right, it is good to keep an eye on like what altcoins are actually doing numbers in a market like this because that's maybe people front loading what they expect to come.
Yeah, I think to be more specific, it's not a case of if something's up 20% when the market's down, like that's a signal to buy. What I'm trying to say there is also next time we go down, watch these ones in particular because they'll hopefully be the first ones that get purchased. So it's not a case of buy now because they're up. Because again, let's look at Pepe. It's up 18% in the last 7 days. If Bitcoin takes a 3% slide, that 18% will likely get sort of melted away, right? So it's just about seeing if that same buyer returns to prop price up when things look a bit stable. But no, I agree.
You've got some news on ETH?
Yeah, there's a bit of a narrative currently on some of the major news outlets out there that are talking about exchange volumes for ETH basically plummeting. This is kind of down that narrative of, because we can see on-chain data, ETH moving to and away from exchanges. This is looking at particularly the supply that's kept on exchanges. Obviously, exchanges are there for you to purchase assets that you can then withdraw. The be-all, short-all there here is that there's just been a 43% decline since July. So it's just fueling this idea that the amount of ETH on exchanges, it is drying up. There is a bid. People are purchasing. They're putting it into staking pools. And basically, there has been that common theme of everyone's chasing yield in this market. So, ETH has been like a pretty sought asset for that point alone. I think it'd be an interesting one just to keep an eye on. I mean, I'm not personally seeing this as like a huge green flag. I still think the rest of the market needs to look better for the price to show more movement. Yeah.
And just another quick little interesting story. So Trump has alluded that a former Coinbase advisor, so crypto native, I guess, or crypto friendly, is expected to take over as Federal Reserve. So that'll happen, I think we said May next year.
Yep.
That's Jerome Powell's current position. So he'll be stepping down. And Trump's basically the one who is going to appoint a new one, and nothing's confirmed yet, but he has alluded to it in some talks, and Polymarket's expecting him to be the front runner. So
he pretty blatantly tipped the hat into his favor. I think last week on Tuesday, it was the market took it really positively. I think there was a rally almost instantly afterwards.
So his name's Kevin Hassett. So former Coinbase advisor. He does own a lot of Coinbase stock, so he's had to basically declare that. Overall, what does that mean? It actually doesn't really mean much, because this position doesn't really have anything to do with crypto. He's making decisions on the federal policies, right? Like interest rate cuts.
Which I think is a big deal, because, again, just so people don't pay attention to these things, like what we have seen this whole year is, again, a mishmash of what the president wants and then what the Fed is doing. Like, they're meant to be an independent party. They're basically meant to stop the country from spiraling out of control, and you get hyperinflation and all those sort of nasty things that some of the other economies out in the world are dealing with. But you're basically having a guy coming in now that's the opposite, where Jerome Powell would basically not give in to the whole Trump rhetoric of like lower rates and blah, blah, blah. Kevin's come out basically to public media and saying, I support Trump's tariffs. I support Trump's narrative on reducing interest rates next year. So he's really coming out swinging that whatever has been said, he's going to, I'm not going to say play ball, but he's open and accommodative to things getting easier next year. So I think we talk about the market just going backwards and forwards because it can't decide on what's to come. If all of a sudden the Fed Reserve and the president are both saying the same thing, I think that's a huge tailwind for the market.
Bit more clarity.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as I said, not guaranteed, but Polymarket is at least saying he's expected to come in. So
that's as good a source as any.
Yeah, of course. We'll keep an eye on that one and keep you guys updated. But that's it for today. But we do have a big episode next week. So Tommy's coming on for, I think, his first episode all year. So good timing, Tommy.
Yep.
We're going to do a bit of a Christmas special, looking back at the year that's been in a little bit more detail than today, and then also looking forward to 2026. Tommy's got some really good insight as well. So be the band back together. He's still on the cover art of the podcast. So I think it's only right we get him on once a year.
That's it.
But yeah, look forward to that. And then we've got some other exciting guests on after that. So we're not slowing down. We will take a bit of a break over Chrissy, but we'll have episodes scheduled all the way through. So look forward to that.
Otherwise, see you guys next week.
See you later.